In this video, I'm going to go over an extremely handy workflow that I found on the N8N template website. This will allow you to sync all your workflows to GitHub, which is a website that you can actually use to back up your workflows so that if anything ever happens to your account or your computer, you always have a backup of your workflows that you'll just be able to copy and paste and get back in business. To get to the N8N templates, once you're logged into N8N, on the left, click on the little template icon at the top left over here. It'll take you to the website. In here, we're going to type in GitHub Backup. And it's going to be the very first choice. Automate N8N workflow backups with GitHub with delete tracking. You can see over here on the left, it says use for free. If you click on that, it will give you an option to copy template to clipboard as a JSON, which is what we want to do. So choose that. Then you can go back to N8N, make a new workflow, name it GitHub Backup if you'd like. Just Control V to paste it, and that'll paste that template we just copied in. Now you'll see a bunch of these have these little red X's. That means that we need to go in and configure them. The first thing we're going to do is actually set up the Get Many Workflows. This is the N8N API. To do that, we actually need to save this workflow and then go into the settings. So at the top right, and hit save. So that way we don't need to copy it again. Then down at the bottom left, click on your avatar picture here, and then go to settings. And then N8N API on the left. I already have two, but that's fine. I'm just going to make a third one here. So on the right side, click on create an API key. Just name it whatever makes sense to you. In this case, we're using it for GitHub, so I'm going to name it GitHub Backup 3, just because I have 1 and 2 over here. So for the expiration, in this case, I'm going to choose no expiration, but if you're more worried about security and whatnot, you may want to choose fewer. But keep in mind, if you choose fewer, you're going to have to come and do this as often as you set. So 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, every time that expires, your workflows aren't going to get backed up and you're going to have to come in here and get a new API key every time. So I'm just going to choose no expiration and then choose save. It's then going to give you this whole thing that if you just click over here to copy, and now it's copied to your clipboard. It's up to you if you want to throw it in a notepad or something just so it's saved elsewhere, because once you close out of this, you will not be able to access it again. Now you can always just delete and then make a new one if you want, so it's not the end of the world, but just keep in mind, click to copy. Hit done. And then at the top left, click back to get out of settings. That should take you back to this workflow. And then on the N8N node, double click on that to bring it up, and then choose if you don't have one set up already, click on Create New Credential. Okay. For the API key, paste in what you just copied previously. And now for this base URL, if you're on the cloud version of N8N, it kind of gives you the template here. It's just a placeholder, but so whatever your name is, that would go there, .app.n8n.cloud/API/v1. I'm using the localhost version that's in Docker that just use localhost :5678. So what you want to do, if you're on the Docker version like me, is copy this, paste it in here, and then want to add that /API/v1. /API/v1. And then save. To check that, we can hit the execute step, and then you should see some things populating over here. And these are all your workflows that are on your account. So like this is the name, API template. If you click on this, it'll minimize it. And this is another one that's named original GitHub Backup. I was messing around with this a couple times. Something to note here, this ID is actually what is going to be copied as the file name on GitHub, which will make sense in a moment, but I just want to show you where it's getting the ID from. Okay, once that is set up, we then need to go and set up our GitHub account, which if you've ever done any kind of software development before, you're probably very familiar with GitHub. It's a very handy website. But the website is just literally github.com. If you have an account already, go ahead and sign in. If not, go ahead and hit sign up. It's totally free. When you set this up, make sure you remember your username because we're going to actually need it in the N8N workflow. And I can show you where to get it. You can choose continue with Google, and that'll set up some of this stuff for you. You have to set up an account for this to work. But in this case, I already have an account, so I'm just going to choose sign in, continue with Google. So at this point, once you create your account, you'll get to a page that looks like this. It may have an option right in the middle that says like create a repository or a repo. So before we create the GitHub repo, we're going to create the credentials that we'll need to actually get the information from GitHub. So to do that, we want to go up to the top right, click on your avatar picture, and then go to settings. And then the bottom left, choose developer settings. And then choose personal access token, tokens classic, and then choose in here, generate new token classic. In here, put a note in, just name it whatever you're going to be using it for. So in this case, we're going to use it for N8N backup. Now, you are going to be creating a repository that is going to be private. I'm going to show you how to do that. If it's private, no one else can access it. If it's public, anyone who looks up your account on GitHub can find it. So you don't want to do that with your workflows. So you need to choose this repo button, which tells you it says full control over private repositories, which is what we want. So once you do that, scroll all the way down and choose generate token. There it goes, it generated the token. Click on the little button here to copy it. Go back to N8N. Click on one of the GitHub icons here, the nodes. And then if we haven't set up a credential yet, click on create new credential. Leave this alone. The user will be the username that you created earlier. I'll show you where to get that if you forgot what you made it. Put in your access token that we just created here. Then if we go back to GitHub, if we click on your profile picture at the top right, and then click on your profile, your username is right here. So in my case, it's just my name. We go back to N8N, put in the user, then hit save. So now that we have the credentials set up, we now need to create a repository where all these files are going to be saved. So now we can go back to GitHub. We can either click on repositories here or go up the top right under icon and choose your repositories here. Either one will work. And then if you don't have one set up already, click on new, the top right. And then put in a repository name. So N8N-backups, for instance. I already have one made, so I'm just going to make it 2. You cannot have any spaces, so that's why I have a dash there. Put a description, backup for N8N workflows, for instance. Now choose visibility. Make sure you change this to private, because otherwise, like the description says, anyone on the internet can see your repository. Chances are you may accidentally slip up and put an API key in there or something like that. You don't want this stuff available to the internet. Once it's public, once it's on the internet, anyone can get to it. It's free will at that point. So make sure you choose private. That way only your account can access it. Now just keep in mind this repository name. We're going to need that later. So I'm just going to copy this now and then create repository. And then you'll see a page like this. When there aren't any files or anything in the repository or a repo, this is what it's going to look like. We go back to N8N on this globals node now. We'll click in there. Under repo name, we want to paste in what we just named that repository or repo. And then for the repo owner, that's going to be the same thing as your username. So again, if we go over to your picture, your profile, this will be your username. Paste that in under repo owner. And that's essentially it as far as setting up the credentials. Now, this is broken up into 2 different workflows. Down here, we do see a few more GitHub nodes that have the little red circle. We don't really need to do anything with them, but we do need to just refresh it. So if we just double click on it, you'll see the same account pops up automatically. I don't need to change anything. I just need to click on it so it refreshes. So that one's done. Over here, we do the same thing. We don't change anything. Same with this one. And same with this one. So essentially this thing is ready to go now. I'm going to go ahead and execute this just so you can kind of see what it's going to do when it's broken into different subflows like this, you're not actually going to see this part play out, which is kind of a shame. I wish it did, but I'll go ahead and execute it here. So what this workflow is going to do, as of right now, the trigger is set for 7 a.m. You can obviously change this to whenever you want. It's then going to use your API, grab all your workflows. You can see the name, API template, that's one of my workflows. Here's another workflow, so on and so forth. So it's going to go through and grab all those. It's then going to set a custom variable called origin as n8n in this case. So if you see it branched off into here. So when n8n does these branches, it goes from top to bottom. So you see over here, it has 6 items. It went through this 6 items over to here, and then went through this loop 6 times. And then on the 7th time it finished. So then it went back over here and then took those work lists again, put them in workflows. And so we created a custom variable just called workflows, and it has all the data in there. Just put it as data, which we'll use later. And then list files. It's going to grab all the files that are on n8n, in your repository on GitHub. So it already uploaded all of them, so that's why you actually see some stuff. It then sets the origin as GitHub. So it knows later in this sub workflow which files are on GitHub and which files are in your workflows. Again, so the first time it goes through its workflow. So it sends this information, all this, the workflow, which is one individual workflow. Again, this was the name of the API template, for instance, with the ID and everything. It sent that specific workflow into this execute workflow step, which if you look, it just has workflow ID. So that's how it knows to look for the same execute node inside the same workflow. It's kind of weird. It's the first time I've really messed with it. So I didn't know what it was doing before. I literally, when I first tried this, I copied this into a separate workflow. And then instead of having this as a database, I switched this to define below and chose that second sub workflow, which it works. It's just, you don't necessarily need it. You can just choose it as by ID and leave it as this command that n8n has built in. It looks for an execute sub workflow within the same workflow. It's very convenient. But anyway, it went through that each time for each one of the workflows. When it does that, it comes down here and it checks between the origin. So if it was the origin was equal to n8n, it would go up the n8n branch. If it was GitHub, it go down to GitHub. If it was an n8n, it goes to look on GitHub. It's going to look to see if that file exists on GitHub. If the file's too large, I'm not quite sure, to be honest with you. And with the way this goes, it doesn't break it down and actually show you each step. So I'm not 100% sure what these ones do, to be honest. Like this particular one, like if it's too big, like I don't know if it, like the workflow was too big for it to download. I'm not quite sure what that one does, to be honest, but it will essentially go to your GitHub. If you already have the workflow on the website, it's going to download it, and then it's going to merge these two. So this workflow, it came from the previous one. It's going to then get into here, and then this one is different or new. So it's going to compare. If it was able to get the file from GitHub, it's going to compare it to see if it matched the same workflow that came through from here. It's going to then go down these 3 different branches. So if it's a new file, like it wasn't found on your GitHub account, it's going to go down this path where file is new and create a new file. The file path is the ID of the workflow. So that's not going to mean anything to you and I. It's just a bunch of letters and numbers. It's a unique identifier. The file content is the actual JSON information of that workflow. Then the commit message is where we're actually going to be able to see the name of the workflow that we put in and makes sense to us. So json.name is the name that we actually give it. And then the GitHub status is what it got from this status here. So in this case, it's going to say -new. In this case, it's going to say -different. So it was different from the original new. So if this one had like a previous version from one you updated previously, it's going to be older. It's going to come through here and say it's different. It's going to go down this path. It's going to edit it. It's essentially just going to erase what the old one was and replace it with this new one. And same with the commit message and the status, just going to say -different. And then if it comes through and these are both the exact same, it's going to come down here and say same and same file, do nothing. It's doing this for every single workflow in your workflows. Once it's done uploading all the files or editing or whatever the case may be, it then goes back and does a second round where it grabs all your workflows, then goes to your GitHub and gets a list of all the files on the GitHub, and then sets the origin to GitHub, and then goes through this loop again. When the when the origin is GitHub, it then goes down this branch and it checks to see if the file was deleted. So if it was deleted on your N8N side, it will then delete it on the GitHub side. That way you don't have a bunch of random files on GitHub that don't match your workflows anymore. So if that is true, it will then delete the file and say done. If not, then it just continues and doesn't do anything. That's explaining everything that actually happens in this workflow. It's a fantastic workflow. I recommend this to everyone who uses N8N, because if anything ever happens to your computer or your accounts, all your workflows will be backed up in GitHub. So let me show you what GitHub actually looks like now if we go back to there. And this was what it looked like before, no files. If I refresh this, we'll now see a list of all the workflows that are on my account. So again, this is the name of the file, which is the ID of the workflow. It doesn't really matter to us. The name is over here, what we actually want, or what we named it. Keep in mind, this ID is always the same. So if I was to come in here and change the name of this GitHub backup, so like I'll go and change it to GitHub backup 2, for instance. This ID name will stay the same, but this commit name is going to be different. So just an example here, GitHub backup, I'll put a 2 at the end. And then it saves automatically. Now if I was to run this through again, I'll show you two different things here. So it's going to go through a lot quicker now because it didn't have to back up everything. And if I refresh this again, you now see it says backup 2 and it also says different because it's a different upload from the original file and everything else just shows new. See all these news? So the original version of those being backed up. But let me show you the deleted portion real quick. We're going to go up to new workflow. It's going to say my workflow. That's fine. Let's just put something in here. Sure. On a schedule. Sure. So save it. Okay. And if we go back to the GitHub backup 2, see, you see my workflow up here now. If we were to run this, it's going to now back up that new one I just created, for example, here. And if you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I got 6 workflows on here now. Refresh, I now have 7. See my workflow, it's up here. So that is ready to go. If I go back home, if I delete this my workflow, which initially I was very confused because I don't see a delete. Like, how are people deleting these things? Apparently, you have to archive it first. And then when you archive it, it goes away out of this list. But if you go up here and under the filter, you have an option down here to show archive workflows as well. When you do that, you see all your archived. So this one is like the darker gray. You choose that, and now you can delete it. Yes. So if we go back into the GitHub backup 2 and run this again, it's going to realize that I deleted that workflow. And if you see right now it's here, if I refresh, that is now gone. So that's how it actually keeps everything up to date. Say something happens and you want to come back in here and to restore it. Click on whichever file you want to get into. So we'll just click on the GitHub backup 2, for instance. When you click on that, it's going to give you all the same JSON information that you would get if you were to come up in here and choose download. Say this was missing or deleted by accident, whatever the case may be. You can come over here, back in the GitHub. On the top right, you have this raw click on copy raw file. So now it's copied to my clipboard. If I go over to a new workflow, and I can just paste it in, Control V, now all the things I filled in previously are here, ready to go. So I could essentially run this and be back in business. Don't forget to enable the workflow so this runs automatically for you. Click on active at the top and then choose got it. And then now N8N warns you, well, not exactly warn, but gives you a little checklist here that you may want to set up an error notification, which if we click on that, it'll take you to this part, which you can then set up the error workflow that I showed you in a previous video, which I'll link up in the top. So that way you would get notified whenever this errors, if it ever does. The other thing you may want to double check is the scheduled trigger. Make sure you have this set at a time that your computer will be on if you're using the local hosted version with Docker. Because otherwise, if it's 7 a.m. and your computer's not on, it's not going to run. So just pick a time that works for you. Okay, so at this point, we have the initial backup set up on GitHub. And then if you make a change, let's say you want to revert back to your previous version. So like say you made a change to your ChatGPT prompts and you're not liking how it's doing it now and you want to go back to what it was previously. You go up to your GitHub repository and then click on the file of the workflow that you're trying to go back to a previous version on. Click on the file and then choose history in the top right. It's then going to show you a list of all the commits that you've made. So like every different change, which you can base on the dates of whenever this was backed up to try to figure out which one would work out for you. Alternatively, you can click on the new one and it will show you a breakdown of the changes. So in this case, I just changed the name from GitHub Backup to GitHub Backup 2. Anything that's in red was taken out and anything in green was changed or added. And you'll always see this updated at and updated ID, always deleting and adding because it changed. Now, if you're going to be adding and changing nodes and stuff, you're going to see all kind of stuff getting added and removed. It might be easier to just copy the whole workflow and then copy just that one node. So to do that, if we go back a screen to this part and click on this View Code at this point button next to the previous version that you want to restore. So click on the View Code at this point button. It will then give you this. At that point, you can go click on the raw, copy raw file, go back to N8N, scroll off to the side somewhere so it doesn't mess up your current workflow, paste it in, and now you can go find the specific node that you want to restore. So like say, for instance, we want to restore this global. You can actually select it and then just Control-C to copy it, and then you can paste it. So then whatever you had stored in there will be available. And then you can go back into your working workflow, for instance, delete it out of here, put this one in place, and you're back in business. I highly recommend using this for anyone who's using N8N because if you ever messed around with software development before, GitHub's amazing at keeping your backups. Like if you ever accidentally change things, you want to go back to how it was before, that's there. It's always available. I do know that N8N has this version control back here, workflow history, and you can choose previously, but that's just for one day if you're on the community version, which isn't what the Docker has. So if you've been messing around with it for a day, you go away and come back the next day, all these aren't going to be. But with the GitHub, depending on how often you do it, you're always going to have that reliable backup available for you. Plus, like I said, if you ever are away from your computer, you can't get to the workflows, you can always just log into your GitHub and copy and paste. That's extremely helpful. If you have any other questions or comments or suggestions for other videos or other templates you'd like me to cover, please leave them in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day.